Isn't it odd that we find certain things funny? And what makes us laugh at some things and not others? Why do some jokes make us snicker and others roar with laughter? And why does a comedian who bombed in one city become a legend in another? Why do we find some things funny? When something is genuinely funny, you can't help but laugh. But why can't we help ourselves? What's the point of laughter? Is it simply an evolutionary hangover? A reflex from our animal ancestors that has no real purpose in our modern lives? Or is there more to this seemingly random act? It turns out there is. Neuroscience has uncovered some fascinating insights into why we find certain things amusing. When we encounter something that tickles our funny bone, a part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex becomes active. This region is responsible for rational thought and decision-making. But it's not the only part of the brain involved in this process. The anterior insula, which plays a role in social cognition and empathy, also lights up when we hear a joke. This suggests that our understanding of social cues and our ability to empathize with others are crucial for humor appreciation. But why do we find some jokes funnier than others? Some jokes play on our expectations. They set up a scenario or premise that leads us to believe one thing. And then they subvert that expectation with a punchline that takes us by surprise. This sudden shift in perspective triggers a burst of activity in the reward centers of our brain, which releases feel-good neurotransmitters like dopamine. Other jokes are funny because they highlight the absurdity of everyday situations. They point out the incongruity between our expectations and reality. And this incongruity activates the prefrontal cortex, which then inhibits the more primitive regions of our brain. This suppression of lower brain activity may be what we experience as the sudden urge to laugh uncontrollably. But why do we find some jokes hilarious, while others just aren't that funny? It turns out that the humor threshold varies from person to person, just like our individual tastes in food or music. Our personal experiences, cultural background, and emotional state all influence what we find funny. A comedian who bombs in one city might just be ahead of their time, or perhaps the crowd has different tastes. What's more, the context in which we hear a joke can significantly affect our perception of its humor. A joke told by a close friend might elicit a different response than the same joke told by a stranger. So the next time you hear a joke and feel the urge to laugh, remember that you are not alone. You are part of a long line of humans who have found humor in the absurdity of life. And while we may not be able to control what we find funny, we can appreciate the neurological symphony that occurs in our brains when we do. So the next time you hear a good one, let out a hearty laugh and give thanks to your amazing brain.